Hey Dethroners, welcome back to another episode of the Dethroning Your Inner Critic YouTube channel. I'm Joanna Kleinman, psychotherapist and CEO of the Dethroning Your Inner Critic coaching company. And today I want to talk to you about 4 clear signs that your life is about to radically shift. So there is something that's shifting in our world. I am wondering if you can feel it. It feels like all of humanity is going through some sort of growth spurt. Okay, so let me ask you to think about if you feel like there's something deep inside you that's just off, kind of like you're shedding old skin, but you don't really have the language for it, and you're not really clear exactly what it is. Okay, it just might feel like something's shifting and you're waiting for it to become clear and emerge. So you might be experiencing up and down emotions. You might sometimes feel an uncertainty about your future in this world that's so unstable. And I certainly know that I am being called to look within, to allow this rising creative energy to be expressed. And I am being called to stand steady in this chaotic world and to keep rooting myself and grounding myself to a healing energy that needs to be released and needs to be expressed into this world. And that is really, right, that's what we're doing inside of the Mastering Your Mind community. We're really all holding each other in this experience of feeling rooted and grounded in a healing energy, even though we're not exactly sure what lies ahead for us personally and for us, right, in our world. Okay, so I am assuming, since you're listening to this, that you are also feeling a shift, some sort of awakening, some sort of sense that there's something new that's emerging. And so if you are feeling kind of like you're in this pressure cooker of intense energy, this is how a lot of people are feeling, especially those people that are feeling this calling to live a more conscious and purposeful life. So what might be happening is that your old patterns and behaviors and your old beliefs are really starting to be pushed to the surface. And so there's a lot that's going on inside of you. Maybe you're feeling a little disoriented right now, or not knowing where you are along your life path, right? Maybe it's like a loss of, what's my place in this life? What's my place on this earth? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? Okay. It's almost like a loss of identity. Okay. So as you try to gain access to the old you, you keep recognizing that old you is no longer a fit. Right. And you might even be like looking in the mirror and you're like, who is this person that I'm seeing in the mirror? Okay. So what that can be is that, there's all of these old patterns that are now clearing out. And maybe you're starting to see what's possible for you to become a lighter and simpler self, but you're still feeling that deep sense of uncertainty. Okay. So let me sort of dive into what might be happening. Okay. So we do have this old self. I call that our inner critic self. Okay. You could call it your ego self. And the more that we start really tuning into these questions, like, am I still the same person? And are my interests still, the same? And what is really my life about moving forward? Okay. What starts to happen is those old habits of beliefs and thoughts and behaviors that your old self, that inner critic self, created so long ago. Okay. Those were developed from your survival mechanisms. Now, I've certainly talked about this before in previous episodes, right? So that self came to be because there was some sort of core issue or core wound that developed early on in your childhood. Now, no human being escapes this. And so there are always going to be parts of ourselves that are rooted from those primitive survival mechanisms. Okay. And the more we go through life, what starts to happen is that those automatic patterns of thoughts and beliefs and emotions and behaviors become bankrupt, okay? Which might make you feel vulnerable and maybe a little bit powerless because the things that used to work in the past, right, to make you feel good enough or confident or valued or give you a sense of purpose are now just no longer a fit. Okay. So, first, I want you to understand that maybe you can't see this yet, but deep within you, something is happening that you can't quite see. Okay. You are being guided somewhere. There's an energy that is propelling you away from the old and towards something else. Okay. And you may be noticing that there are small messages or synchronicities that you're starting to see around you, small little messages that you're on the right path. Okay. And so that shift, you can actually feel it deep down in your heart, deep down in your gut. But you've got this automatic inner critic mind that, of course, is going to keep feeding you those same doubts. But somewhere deep in your heart and deep in your soul, you know that there's a shift. And what you can also know deep down is that what is meant for you is coming to you. You might not know what's meant for you. Okay. You might not know exactly where you're supposed to be, but I'm going to tell you that right now, your one and only job is just to keep making space, making room, letting go of what no longer serves you. Those are your limiting beliefs, your old stories, that heavy baggage that you've been carrying for most of your life that was created by that inner critic self. Okay. All of those things, those old beliefs, those old stories, all that heavy baggage, that is not meant to come with you into this next chapter of your life. So all of this inner turmoil and not really knowing who you are and what your life is about, that's all part of what's making space and making room for what is meant for you to come into your life. And you might not understand this now, but at some point you will look back on this time and you will understand how everything that's happened all the way up until now has led you to this moment where the shift is about to occur. And right now, it might be messy and it might be bumpy. Okay. And I want you to consider, what if the messiness and the bumpiness and the uncertainty, what if that's all part of your inner transformation? What if the uncertainty right now is actually the very thing that's propelling you towards clarity about what's next for you? Okay. So let me explain a little bit of that. Okay. Because that's some heavy things to consider. So Deepak Chopra says that all great change is preceded by chaos. Okay. So let's dive into the 4 signs that your life is about to radically change. All right. So first, the chaos might be that the things that used to excite you are no longer exciting you today. Okay. And so you might be asking yourself, if I'm no longer the person that I once was, who am I? Okay. Now, this is when life can feel really uncertain. And too many of us fall back into those default modes when we don't see the clear path. Okay. So too many of us don't know how to tune into our true authentic power and stay true to ourselves. Okay. That is why so many people are off kilter, right? So we all automatically use our inner critic selves to navigate life. That's just automatic. Okay. That's been hardwired. It's been ingrained. So we do that automatically. And if we're just going through life using that same old mind to try to deal with this time of uncertainty, we're going to struggle in the face of the unknown. We're going to struggle in the face of the uncertainty. We're going to feel very unfulfilled. We're going to feel anxious. We're going to feel scattered. We're going to keep trying to force things to happen and keep trying to figure things out that are maybe not ready to be figured out right now. Now, there are statistics that show that up to 80% of women don't believe that they're good enough right now. Okay. And I am sorry to say that that feeling of not being good enough is never going anywhere. So if you feel like your life is upended and it's chaotic and you're just looking for something that's going to make you feel like you're good enough, that's not going to happen. Okay. What is a powerful way of dealing with that experience of not being good enough, okay, is to start creating the space and the room to tune into a deeper inner knowing, to continue to do that inner work of just letting go of what no longer serves you. Those limiting beliefs, those old stories, that heavy baggage that, as I said, is not meant to come with you into this new chapter of your life. As you continue to keep seeing all of that, all of the beliefs that make you feel not good enough, all of the old stories, all of the old baggage, okay? The more you see it, not make it go away, just see it, the more that that work continues to make space for what's meant for you and for what's coming. Okay. Now, remember, during this time, your inner critic is not going to get any quieter. She is not going to go out without a fight. She's going to get louder with every step that you take. Because if you're following more of an inner knowing that your inner critic thinking mind can't see, you're going to constantly be outside of your comfort zone. And when we are constantly living life outside of our comfort zone without trusting that that's exactly where we're supposed to be, we panic. Okay? We panic. So, number 2 reason why this is a sign that your life is about to change is that feeling that your life lacks direction and purpose. And maybe you feel like you're walking through a dark forest and you can't even see the trees in front of you, let alone the way out of the forest. Okay. Now, when you start to access that deeper, authentic self, you actually have the power to follow a path that's very unclear. Okay. Because you can hear just that very next whisper. You don't need to know the way out of the forest. You just need to hear the whisper for the very next thing that there is for you to do. Okay, that is how you start the process of no longer allowing your inner critic to be your primary leader in your life. Okay, that's how you start to build the muscle to have more access to that deep inner knowing within you. And that's when you start to feel yourself being guided towards something, even if you can't quite see it. Okay, when you can unhook yourself from your inner critic that's screaming at you that you're not good enough and you don't know what's meant for you and you need to figure all of this out right now or yesterday, okay? When you can let her keep screaming at you, but not let yourself fall into that rabbit hole, now you can tune into an energy that you know is working in your favor. That's when you can start to see those tiny synchronicities that are aligning in perfect timing. That's when you can feel that shift happening, right? That the universe is guiding you and you can feel it deep down in your bones, even while your inner critic continues to doubt it and maybe even call you crazy. Okay. Your heart knows this is real. Now, without knowing how to differentiate between your inner critic self and your authentic self, it's very difficult to feel that inner knowing. It's very difficult to experience that those tiny little energy shifts inside your body. Okay. So, and the reason why I know all of this is because I have been doing that inner work for a very long time. I've had a vision that I wanted to help women to rewire their mind and to develop a completely different mind to navigate their lives with. Okay. So for years and years and years, I couldn't see the path forward. I had no idea what was next. I was in that dark forest for years. And I had to do the deep inner work to keep climbing a mountain that has no top. And let me tell you something. That takes a whole lot of courage, a whole lot of faith, and a whole lot of trust. Something that my inner critic has none of. Okay. And yours doesn't either. Okay. My inner critic has zero courage, zero faith, zero trust. Okay. So if not for this work, I don't even know what my life would be right now. I don't know what anything would look like in my life right now because I would have given up a long time ago. I would have just sat in the dark forest and said, okay, I give up. I'm just going to spend the rest of my life in the dark forest and I'm going to wait for the forest rangers to come and come and find me. Okay. And if you are navigating your life through the lens of your inner critic mind, you don't even know that you have a true authentic self that's hidden below that. Okay. So this is the third sign that your life is about to change. This inner feeling of restlessness that won't go away. So the most important thing that I have learned in this journey to get where I am now, and by the way, I'm still climbing the mountain where there's no top. Okay. But so what I learned is that tuning into your authentic self certainly does not automatically guarantee success, but living a life of inauthenticity because you're mistaking your true self for your inner critic, that's a guarantee for failure. Every time, over time, you will fail. Now, the definition of inauthenticity is not in fact what it is said to be. Not in fact what it is said to be. Now, your inner critic self is not, in fact, what it is said to be. Your inner critic is all about protecting you from core wounds that were created a very, very long time ago, right? So because she's going to protect you from that, of course she's going to whip up these feelings that you're not good enough. Of course she's going to find evidence for that. Of course she's going to make you feel like you're not loved enough, not valued enough, don't know what you're doing, not important enough, not smart enough. So unless you know what your core wounds are that keep showing up, you don't have to dig way back into your past to find them. If you don't know what your core wounds are that keep getting churned up in your life now, you are probably leading your life with an inauthentic self. And that is the very thing that causes that inner restlessness. Okay? So, it is time for your authentic self to tell your inner critic that there is a new boss in town, because we do not soar to the level of our goals and our dreams. We instead stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. Okay? We don't rise to what our inner critic says is the life that we're supposed to be living. Okay? We're always going to fall back to what we automatically believe that we're worthy of. And your inner critic will always have you falling back to a lesser life, to a smaller self. You're never going to feel the joy and fulfillment in your life that you want to feel until you learn to really, truly see and embrace who you really are, and learn to understand that you are 100% enough as you are. I don't care how many past mistakes you've made. I don't care how many past failures you've had. I know you probably have a lot of regrets, and none of that makes any difference when it comes to really being able to stand in your true worthiness. And when you learn that, that is the most powerful thing that you can learn. So the moment that you go from believing your inner critic's voice to really seeing yourself as you truly are, the moment that happens, you're living a completely different life. And there are so many women that don't see their own greatness. They don't hear their own calling. They don't know how to really let their inner light shine. In fact, many of them don't even know that they have a light. They don't know that they've spent their lives unconsciously trying to dim their light. Now, we are afraid as women to illuminate our light. And illuminating our light does give other women the permission to let their own light shine. Okay? But sometimes that's a little unsafe. It doesn't feel right to let your own light shine, right? We've kind of been taught to dim that light. So I'm here to tell you that along my journey, rejection, failure, setbacks, no one believing in me, not getting traction, things not going my way for a long period of time, those things have zero to do with your potential for your own success or for where you want to be. And in fact, I can guarantee you that's exactly what you're going to face when you are up-leveling yourself and up-leveling your life. And this goes for your personal life, this goes for your professional life, and this goes for everything in between. Okay? The people who succeed the most in life, anyone who's done big things, moved humanity forward, right? Written great books, launched successful businesses, had a podcast, right? Those are the same people who fail the most, because they're the ones who keep falling and getting up and falling and getting up. And they'll fall 12 times, but they'll get up 13. Okay. That goes for anything you want to create, whether it's extraordinary relationships, a different level of health, a different sense of self, being the best parent you want to be, creating a business, getting promoted, making a great piece of art. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to be the one that knows how to access your courage and your ability to stand in the face of the unknown and be willing to go for it. And that is not most people. So the fourth sign that your life is about to change, and this is a big one, you see synchronicities everywhere. So I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of women in my Mastering Your Mind cohorts that feel like they were supposed to connect with me, and they can't explain it. They just know that this is the support that they needed to get themselves to a different level of living. And I wholeheartedly believe that the women that I connect with are somehow guided to connect. Okay. Now, many of them came into the Mastering Your Mind program with one dream. And then once they got into the program, they realized that that dream that they thought was theirs was not their true dream. Okay. So what happens is you begin to understand, right? When you let go of one dream that you thought was your path, it makes space to reinvent a totally new dream. Okay. And again, if you are using that old mind, you might not see clearly that it's time to let go of one dream to allow space and room for a new dream to emerge. Many people don't realize that because they don't realize that their inner critic self was the one that created the dream in the first place. So there's one woman that comes to mind. I'll call her Rachel. And she came in, she thought her dream was to lose 70 pounds. And when she started doing the work to really understand her inner critic self and uncover her core wound and see all of the places that it shows up, she started realizing that her dream had nothing to do with her weight, that her weight was actually more a symptom of these things that we talked about, the restlessness, the uncertainty, the feeling that what used to bring her joy no longer brought her joy, right? And so she realized that that weight was just a symptom of being stuck, because basically she's felt unworthy for much of her life. So when she finally understood how to access her authentic self, her vision actually turned into a vision of falling deeply in love with herself. And once she started really understanding how to unhook herself from that inner critic self, from that core wound of unworthiness, she developed a completely different relationship with herself. Now, does that mean that her inner critic went away and never came back? No. She just kept working the muscle to really see the difference. And so she stopped focusing on the food. She stopped focusing on the weight. And what's interesting is that weight loss was an accidental byproduct of that. Okay. Because she was tuning into her intuitive, authentic self, but not so that she could drop the weight, so that she could really lean into what is my true life's purpose? What is my inner whisper? What is the next step for me? And that is when she started to take steps to create her own business. And within 8 months, she dropped 27 pounds and she got her first client in her business within 8 months. And that is because she was taking actions towards what her true authentic self really wanted for her. Now, your intuition is a muscle you can build. And for many of us, when we're listening to our inner critic, that inner critic has not only convinced us that we're not good enough, okay, but has also convinced us that our value is really dependent on what the outside world thinks of us, okay? So I work with people all the time who don't even recognize that they're still trying to get approval from the outside world, right? And these are, many women who have done really extraordinary things in their lives, and they're still trying to get approval from the outside world, and they're blind to this. So my invitation to you is to carve out some time to look back at your life and think about some times in your life where you had a gut feeling about something and you trusted it. Think about what happened when you trusted it. Now, also think back to a time when you had a gut feeling and you didn't trust it and you went against it. Maybe you listened to someone else instead of listening to yourself. Now, what happened then? So when you start focusing on these moments in your life, that's how you start to build that muscle of remembering, what does it feel like when I trust that gut feeling? What happened in the past when I trusted it? What happened in the past when I didn't trust it? That builds that muscle to tune into your authentic self over time. Okay. And the more you do it, the more you build new neural pathways in your brain that have you trusting your intuitive, authentic self. Now, this is a practice that takes time because you're really rebuilding a muscle that you haven't used in a long time, right? It's almost like the inner critic muscles are like these huge bulging muscles, right? And the muscles of our authentic selves are like these tiny little underdeveloped muscles, okay? So the lies and the self-doubt are way more powerful, especially the busier you are. Okay. When you don't give yourself the time and the room to get quiet and still. Now that goes back to that restlessness. Okay. Your inner critic is going to want to keep you busy so that you don't have to feel the restlessness and the anxiety of not knowing where your life is going. And that's where you can resist the urge to keep going and going and going. Okay. When I get still and I drop into what's really true for me, there's a very distinct feeling that's associated with that. Okay. So when we feel the energy around taking action, or we feel the energy around not taking action, okay? Because when we are putting something off, there's something about that energy that might feel depleting, restricting, small, okay? But when we access our inner knowing, okay, what's always true is that even though we might be scared to take that next action, there's something that's more expansive and something about that experience that's going to cause our growth, or it's going to free us up in some way. That's what courage is. Now, that's how I distinguish what is my inner knowing versus what's being driven by that reflexive fear or self-doubt that our inner critic creates, right? So when we live in alignment with our deep truth, we can really feel the energy of that expansion and freedom. And we can also feel the energy of being restricted and staying small and staying safe. Okay. So the moment that we step into our power is the moment that we give other people permission to step into theirs. Okay. This work is about living life with no regrets and inspiring other people to embrace all of who they are. And I want you to consider what it costs you to let your self-doubt and your fear stop you. And what it costs you when you listen to that fear that we're just making up in our heads, right? That doesn't allow us to live our best life exactly as we are. Now, this is a big thing that your inner critic will convince you of, that if you stand out, you're going to get canceled. All right. As women, we learn to downplay our strengths. We learn to dim our light to fit in. Women often bond over problems. And if we do have a victory, sometimes we don't even want to take credit for it. We'll give credit to somebody else, or we say, oh, it's nothing. Okay. But if there's something wrong in our life, right? If we have something, that is making us feel small, we'll tell everyone, because women tend to bond over our problems, and we worry that if we share our greatness, we're going to seem conceited or boastful, or we'll get rejected, right? We'll get kicked out of the tribe. And so, I've noticed over the years that I'm very selective about who I share my successes with and who I share my wins with. Okay. So when things are going well and I feel really proud of myself, I do have a tendency to downplay those things or to not share them at all if there's someone who I think might feel threatened or insecure about that. Okay. So, but the thing is, when I share my win, I'm living an example that frees another woman to start sharing her greatness and sharing her miracles and sharing the things that she's accomplished. Okay. But it's important to understand that you do have to be somewhat selective about who you choose to share these things with. Okay. And that's also an important part of tuning into that energy of your authentic self. Okay. Because what starts to happen is energetically, you start to recognize that there are probably people in your life right now who are not really your people. And that's when you allow them to slowly exit your life, not in a dramatic way, but you just intuitively decrease the energy and attention that you give to relationships with people that don't make you feel good. Right? So now, how do you identify the difference between your inner critic beliefs that you're not good enough, that have taken a hold of you and mess with your confidence and self-worth, and what is the truth? Okay. And the answer is you need to ask yourself about these inner critic thoughts. Is this really true? And how do I know that it's true? Now, what you'll find is if you keep asking yourself those two questions, is this true? And how do I know it's true? You'll start to see the story that you've been telling yourself and mistaking it for your true self. Okay? You'll start to see that when you believe that it's true, you'll start to see similar emotions and similar behaviors. Now, the idea that we can remove our inner critic beliefs and replace them with more empowering beliefs, that is just not the case. That's just not realistic, because our inner critic is never leaving. So the key to building the muscles of the mind of your authentic self is to really understand that those thoughts and beliefs are never leaving, but to understand that they're not real. Okay. And that's when you get to choose which thoughts and beliefs you're going to empower. Now, the biggest belief of my authentic self that has changed the course of my life single-handedly is my belief that my life is divinely orchestrated, so that when I get rejected or something doesn't go my way, or things aren't happening quick enough, or I'm feeling stuck, or I'm feeling unsure, I can tune into that belief. And that is how I continue to take the very next action. That is the only reason why I am as far up the mountain as I am. I'm still climbing. I still can't see a top of the mountain. Okay. But there's no way that I would have ever gotten this far up the mountain without rewiring a fundamentally different mind with different thoughts and different beliefs that I can consciously tap into when my inner critic has taken me down the rabbit hole and I'm at my lowest, which happens to me daily sometimes, right? So these thoughts like I'm too old, some of you might have thoughts like I'm too young, right? I don't have what it takes. My time has passed. These are all your inner critic stories that you keep feeding with your energy and attention, okay? And it is life-changing magic to understand how to get grounded in this very moment and trust that the dots will connect, that your life is directing you towards your lessons and the life that you're supposed to be leading. And if you can unhook yourself from that self-doubt and those inner critic lies and labels that you've been telling yourself that are not true, that is exactly how you can drop into a deeper knowing. And that deeper knowing can be as simple as, I just know it's all going to work out. I do know what's right for me. I am figuring it all out. And I am worthy of those goals and dreams. See, you have to remember that our self-worth is really our ceiling in every area of our lives. So developing a new mind with new muscles and continuing to strengthen that new mind is exactly what has you unlearn those inner critic lies and raise the ceiling of your worthiness. Because you've got to build the muscles to believe that you're worthy of your dream exactly as you are, including your past failures. Because those past failures do not determine anything about your future successes. And if you do that work, that is exactly how you step into alignment with the person that you are born to be. So I created the Mastering Your Mind program because I really want you to enjoy the whole journey of unlearning your inner critic's lies. That's the greatest way to really access your North Star and to become who you're born to be. Okay? Because when you're living under that belief that your inner critic keeps convincing you is the truth, we cannot be fulfilled ever, no matter how much we accomplish, no matter what we succeed at. If you don't believe that you're enough right now, you cannot accomplish your way into your fulfillment, okay? Nothing you do in your life is going to fulfill you when underneath it all, you keep listening to your inner critic beliefs and being convinced that you're not worthy or you're not good enough. So unlearning all of those lies is what brings fulfillment into your whole life. Okay. So if you have any interest, if this is speaking to you, if you want to access a delicious, extraordinary, intimate, small community of women, the cohorts have no more than 10 women in each cohort, and those relationships become your lifeline as you are learning how to bring the mind method into your daily living. It is a journey of growth and learning and transformation like nothing else out there. So if that's calling to you, go to my website, Dethroning Your Inner Critic. Let's find a time to chat, and you can determine if this program is right for you. Thanks for listening today.